Hey there, for this video I've put together 3 little doors. They are made from balsa wood and XPS foam and they're very basic, but they look more complicated, as a lot of things that I do are. The blue one, it's not much more difficult than the other 2, but it's just the little details that you add to these things that make them look fancy and quite realistic. I have used balsa wood because it's far more realistic than the grain that you can try to imitate into XPS foam, and you don't have to muck around doing it when you use balsa wood. I do hope you get something out of this video, and I hope you enjoy it. I'm marking up the red door first. It's the most basic, so I'm just going to show how to draw in your door designs. I just use a popsicle stick and a sliver of a coffee stirrer to get even edges, and the design works out that way. I don't measure anything because I just find it works easier to eyeball it and use something that already has an even measurement on it. And I just draw it in. It doesn't have to be exact. I mean, if you're following an exact building, then you want to make it like the image, but I just kind of pulled this up and then drew it up easily, and then started to press quite firmly with the pencil once I'd already marked out the design. And I'm kind of like angling the pencil and beveling it. You just gently push it along. You don't have a pencil that's too sharp, or you may cut through to the other side. But if you do it this way and just gently kind of just rub it into the shape that you want, or the angle that you want in the design, and it comes up quite good. As I said before too, you could do this with the XPS foam, but this has got grain in it, so yeah. You could do a design on the back if you had a door that's going to be opening, or you could make a second one and attach it to the back in the same way. I'm just doing it this way as an example. This is the green door. It's very similar to the red one, except I've cut a window hole in it. Really basic stuff. And I've got a bit bigger one to do the blue door, just to do it a little fancier, something a little more special. I'm going to put some brown wash on it. When you do this brown wash on something like the balsa wood, if you're not used to doing it, you'll find it is quite absorbent, and you will lose some of the design that you have drawn in, depending on how much you've put into it. You could always put a brown spray onto this, which would save that happening, but if you do it the way I did it, simply draw it back in once it's dry. You can see there how it's plumped up a bit in the recesses. I've just redrawn it in so it's nice and sharp again, and then I'm going to put some of just a red acrylic down on it with a very big rough brush. I'm just using circular motions because I don't want brush strokes, and I also don't want to fill in the grain that I have so very carefully tried to avoid filling in, and why I used a stain in the first place, so it holds its own detail of the grain of wood. I've done it really roughly because I want it to look, like an older door. The blue one, I painted a little more carefully. I didn't make this one look too shonky and old looking. I'm being very careful not to damage or break that balsa wood there. You got to be cautious with it, but once you get used to cutting it, it's not too bad. I put a couple little pieces in the top here of the top of the window. They're just a sliver of a coffee stirrer. They're a little stronger than the balsa wood, and same with this piece here, just the door divider. I didn't want to risk cutting them, or if I'd gone cutting that many pieces out, I would have been at a high risk of breaking them. So I just cut them and glue them in later. You could do this with all pieces if you really wanted to. It's up to you. Same with this little one, just some coffee stirrer little pieces. Now for some detailing on the doors. Box paper, or cardboard, sorry, and I just cut it out into the shape that was desirable for a little letterbox slot. And then I also drew it in with a pencil just to make a recess, what would look like the actual slot itself. And then a little bit of brown on it like I do with everything, just to, darken it up underneath before you go putting paint on top. And I'm not using a brush again because I don't want brush strokes and thick paint on there. If you had an airbrush, I'm sure that would solve all your problems. I don't have one, so I just use my fingers a lot of the time. And there's also a little panel that the door handle will sit on. I'm not sure what it's called, but yeah, that thing. I'm going to put a little bit of gold paint on these because I want them to look like brass. And that's another reason you put the brown down too. It'll really help it look brassy. And I just dab it on, allowing my fingerprints to do a lot of the work. So it'll look nice and tarnished. I have filled in that little hole a bit with the paint, but that's okay. I can redraw it. These are so tiny to fiddle with. But they're simple and they look really effective. They're very easy to get to scale, which I really appreciate. I'm going to use some really thick water-based glue. I don't want very much. I want it to sort of suction itself down instead of, glue sort of sliding around. I just want it to really heavily sort of push down. I don't want any excess glue coming out of the edges if I can help it. Because it's so small, you may notice, even though it's clear, some little lumps of glue residue, and I'd like to avoid that if possible. So this thick glue is really good for that. And I avoid using super glue because unless you are some sort of super glue master, you need to move bits around, and you don't get that luxury of time with super glue. I'm just redrawing that little slot in. I think it might be a little bit dark, so it sort of takes away from the realism. But, too late now. I'm just using some very thin plastic for the glass on this. It comes out really nicely and very clean looking. I printed out some little decals, and I printed them in different sizes so I could double check exactly how I wanted it to look. You can't often be sure until it's too late and you print it out, so I often print out multiples of the same thing so I can do this and be sure I know the size that I really want. Might as well do it that way while you're already at it, I suppose. So this image I thought would be interesting to show for those of you who might want to do this kind of thing. It's just when you angle it, you can really see what looks like depth and perspective changing as you move it around. It's another interesting thing that you might want to consider when putting a door on a building. That thick glue again, very, very sparingly put on and very evenly too. I want it covered 100%, so there's no bubbles or gaps, and so it won't fall away in the many years to come. Because I really want to hang on to these doors. I'll add them to my huge door collection. I very carefully place it down, and I'm going to use a really clean dry brush and then just rub it around everywhere, and it'll just very, very neatly sit. And don't worry about the glue if it's milky or white glue. It will dry clear. It's a little murky looking there, but that will dry up perfectly. Fear not. I'm using some little pins to make the door handles. I just dip them into a bit of gold paint, so it'll be a brass handle, and then you just roll it around, and then you just want to shape it so it's nice and even. When you're a kid, or if you're like me and still do it now, and there's a candle and you keep sticking your finger in it and you get that big ball of wax on the end of it as it gets bigger and bigger and bigger. It's kind of like that. Let the paint dry and then stick it back in the paint and reshape it again, then let it dry. You do it about 3 times and you get quite a good sized little door handle. and then very carefully push it through. Just make sure you don't split the wood. Put some sort of support underneath it so it'll go through easily, and then just push it down to the desired depth that you want it. And you can snip it off at the back and you've got yourself a very easy door handle. Drop a super glue in the back will make sure it never comes out. That's pretty easy and basic stuff. On these two doors where I did put the plastic, I had to take it off this one, and then I put down some water-based glue to adhere it, because the super glue for some reason went very milky, and I've never had it do this before. It may have been the type of plastic I was using, I'm not sure. But I mean, if you wanted frost on a window, this would be one way to do it. So that's something to think about, which is really interesting. But I didn't want to have it on this window in particular, so I pulled it off. And I left it on this one. I was going to change it over and thought, I was going to break it if I kept pulling at it as well. So I thought, how do I get out of it? And then I realised I could make curtains. I knew this would be a great way to disguise the milky, frosty look of the glass. And thanks to one of the viewers, Karen Musa, she said that you can use tea bags for things like curtains. And I ran and grabbed one on the cupboard and thought, yep, I'm definitely having a go. And I'm very glad I did, because they're very, very strong. And they're a little transparent, they're the right thickness. And I mean, this one had a little pattern around the edge, like a little ridge, which it just worked out really easily. So that was great. That was my big thrill of the day. Here's just an XPS foam door frame, very basic. Two sides, two little pieces on the top. I just, laid the door down and then laid them around it, made sure they're the right size, and then glued them together. I didn't measure them. Dried really well. I just gave it a nice dusting of an off-white. It kind of looks a bit like stone. It's quite nice. Very easy, subtle, rustic, all the good stuff. You can see it's definitely starting to look like a door. But it's nice, it's tidy, I like it. I haven't made doors like this before, but I'm appreciating that little extra bit of effort to make them look good. I like it a lot. Bit of stain on the bottom of this, just trying to dirty it up a bit. And also because the letterbox slot is a little bit uneven, I'm going to also put a shadow around it, which will take away from that. It's just part of the deception and the illusion. You can't notice it so much when it's darkened around it. Plus it adds, a bit of shadow, a bit more realism. It's a win-win thing. I should make more mistakes. My work might turn out better. Oh, wait, never mind. I already do. You can see it's just softened it enough to be a distraction from the very slightly miscalculated cutting of the scissors on the cardboard. A little bit heavier. You could use a pencil or something around this if you really wanted to. Whatever you can do to darken around your mistakes does wonders. I appear to be taking paint away at this point. Oops. Anyway, doesn't look too bad. And another little door frame. This one's just a bit of XPS foam in the back and a bit of popsicle sticky coffee stirrer slithers on the top, on the front, just to give it a little bit more depth. I basically did whatever was the easiest option, but oddly enough they came out looking really, really nice, which I was very happy with. More of the tea bags as just extra added detail for curtains on these, because I wasn't sure what to do. I didn't want to have overkill, so I did that instead. And a little door handle. I didn't want to dirty this one up too much. I actually like how clean it looks. And the green one with its little door handle and very simple door frame as well. Less definitely is more a lot of the time. These are so basic, but they have come out just enough. I really love how they've come out. I do hope that you got something out of this, and I hope that you can make many doors of your own in so many different styles and designs. And I hope to see you next time.